to reports today that the new Queensland government could renege on its predecessor's deal to give nearly $500 million in partnership with the federal government to the US-based startup PsiQuantum, seeking to create the world's first viable quantum computer. Now, from day one, this billion-dollar taxpayer giveaway has stunk to high heaven. If it was such a good deal, why the need for a $1 billion subsidy? If it stood up, why wasn't there an open tender process? Now, on the evidence so far, it seems that this business could be better at connecting with Labor lobbyists than wisely spending those many millions. Businesses that need taxpayer support usually make us poorer, not richer. Labor just doesn't get it. There's no such thing as government money. It's our money that they take from us. And when they waste it, the money that we work so hard to earn, well, nothing gets us more worked up. Joining me now to discuss this and more, and in particular his new documentary coming up, Sky News contributor Chris Uhlmann. Chris, I have to say, $1 billion in subsidies to something that's not ever been built to scale, where there are real probity concerns about the awarding of that contract. I can't even call it a tender. It didn't go through the usual tender processes that I'm experienced with in government. What do you make of this move that it looks like today that the Queensland state government's going to walk away?
Yeah, well, Peter, what do we know about this deal? We know that there was an expression of interest issued last year by the government to try and get people in the quantum industry to put forward for a project like this. We know that PsiQuantum wasn't part of that. And while others were putting forward their proposals, PsiQuantum was already in discussions with the Australian government, and the industry department had already set up a task force to review it. So it wasn't part of that project at all. We also know that there was a relationship between someone in the minister's office and someone involved in the venture capitalist that's behind this company. Now, none of that necessarily means anything. It could be all squeaky clean. But of course, like so many government contracts in Australia at a state and federal level, we just don't know, Peter. And that's the problem. Too often commercial in confidence is used to disguise things, and a little bit of sunlight would go a long way. If we were in the United States, there would be a whole lot more scrutiny of this kind of deal, and a whole lot more stuff would have to be public.
I was just talking to a guest on the program a moment ago, Dr. David Barton, about the locking up of state and national parks around the country. It's happening everywhere. They're either being used for wind turbine placement, or they're being closed down for Indigenous heritage reasons, as we see with a rock climbing place in the Grampians. But he was also talking about the sale of, or land being made available to private companies to then sell carbon permits, basically turning parks into carbon sinks. What sort of knowledge do you have of this?
Peter, I don't have much knowledge about that at all, but I will say that many of the government departments that we have now seem to be operating more as activists than they are as departments. One difference between Australia and the United States, and something I didn't think was a good thing about the US, is when the president comes in, he'll simply clean out an enormous amount of the bureaucracy and put his own people in. And I was always in favour of a bureaucracy that was frank and fearless in its advice. But I'm sorry, I feel at the moment that it's too much captured by a whole lot of vested interests, and too much, again, is going on behind closed doors. There are decisions being made by bureaucrats that are having effects on the lives of ordinary Australians, and there is no transparency about what's going on.
Sometimes I think, Chris, there's no line of sight even from the minister. I think that the delegated powers to some of these chief bureaucrats are being signed off, quite legally, but governments are not aware of what's going on.